get tired of the word simp. And I don't know if I understand it where it comes from because a lot of he's simping and simping. Like I can understand with the fresh and fit. I kind of get that. But with a man that wants to actually romance his woman or love her and is okay to love on her, why are they being called simps?
What's going on, Rebel family? Today's video, basically, what is a simp? But before we get to the video, go ahead and like, share, and subscribe to the channel. So, I was cruising the YouTube streets, and I came upon the Iam CourtneyMichelle channel. From Lapeef Network. She has a podcast going again, and she were having it co-hosted by Obsidian, and they had a discussion, and it veered over into what is a simp. So of course I had to pause and take a look. So let's jump right into the video of what
Shout
is
out
a simp.
to if you don't mind, I just want to give a shout out to Abba and Preach for the
Right.
for
They
the
not
for
playing.
the classy pettiness is just on a different level. Like I mean, I was loving it. That's definitely a classic expose.
Okay, so let me. So this was I guess it was talking about no girls allowed. It was the title of this particular live stream. And the conversation where I'm picking it up here, the conversation was just they were just talking about fresh and fit. And looks like Omowale Afrika, he was giving a shout out to Abba and Preach for exposing fresh and fit. So that's where this thing picks up here. They so the discussion he just stated about their simping. So let's hear it again.
Yes, it was.
It's definitely a classic expose of
Yes, it was.
the Simpingtons, in the space. So that was very interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so he just stated the simping tendency in the space, talking about the manosphere space. Okay, so he said that was classic. Abba and Preach exposing the simping tendency in the space. All right, let's keep going.
So that's what, I was wondering. I have a question too, because I get tired of the word simp. And, I don't know if I understand it where it comes from because a lot of, he's simping and simping. Like I can understand with the fresh and fit. I kind of get that. But with a man that wants to actually romance his woman or love her and is okay to love on her, why are they being called simps?
Okay, so let me pause right here. And I might get around to doing a video about that as well to share my thoughts about women in the manosphere or being manosphere adjacent, et cetera, et cetera. Right? Apparently, there's been some content creators in the manosphere have have had a problem with women being in the space, and I'll be honest with you. Her statement right there is why one of the issues that brothers will have issue with women being in the manosphere because we don't want like okay, so if there's a space for men to talk, so let's use the barbershop analogy, right? Because I've heard the manosphere being analogized to or analogous to um, the barbershop. The brothers say, okay, I'm in the barbershop. Brothers can come in here and we can just talk, kick it, whatever, right? Times have changed. Most barbershops now, you can't use profanity, so forth and so on, which is fine because there's kids in there, so forth, right? But at least it's a space where men can talk and not worry about hearing the inputs of women. But she comes over here and then she says something about, well, I'm tired of hearing this word of simp. Okay, well, stop watching YouTube. Stop watching men's channels. Stop watching men's content. Because right before this, she said, why aren't men holding these men accountable? Talking about fresh and fit. Talking about, okay, they're out here pushing a fantasy. They're out here selling the dream. They're out here selling the dream that, they're saying one thing, but they're doing another. They're telling guys not to simp, but then, the little short one, Walter Meeks or whatever his name is, Fresh CEO, was just exposed for, you know, having some chick that really wasn't rocking with him, except for what she can get out the deal by being on a yacht with him, so forth, whatever, right? So she said, why aren't men holding men accountable? Well, guess what? Men calling each other simps and so forth or whatever, that is part of that holding quote unquote accountable. And like I said again, I'll say it again, no one's holding anybody accountable unless you can punish them. You know, so all these people get on YouTube and talk about I'm holding you accountable, or get on social media, I'm holding you accountable. You're not holding anybody anything, because simply they can just turn off YouTube or click off the video. And then where's your holding someone accountable? You're just running your mouth, right? So no one's holding anyone accountable unless you can punish them. That's the only way you can hold someone accountable. But anyway, so I'm going to get back to the video, but I just wanted to say that just I might have to put down my thoughts, but we don't really, you know, Courtney, we don't really care what you're tired of, right? Like, you're in the space and saying, I'm tired of hearing the word simp. We don't care. Men talk how we talk. We don't care what you think about how we say anything. This whole conversation is nothing but gaslighting and straw man arguments, right? Especially coming from Omowale, because he started the simping word. He started this conversation with the Abba and preach thing and the simping going on in the space, right? But listen to what he has to say here.
Because it has heterophobic undertones. I think that a lot of dudes, I think it was Obsidian who spoke earlier about the extreme desert dick that exists amongst a lot of viewers. So folks who are, you know, frustrated that they haven't been able to pursue those particular interests with women have written off women, and they attack men who, you know, basically have a chance of getting with women. They write them off as simps because historically.
Okay, before we get into the historical stuff, that's total gaslighting or it's a gaslighting tactic, and it's a straw man argument to say that it's only dudes in the viewers who have extreme desert dick that can't get with women, so they call dudes who can attract women simps. Guess what? Dudes who can attract women call other dudes simps. Like, stop. A lot of the pickup artists, you'll hear the same language from pickup artists that they call simps. They call other dudes simps. And they know exactly what simping is. All of them on the panel know exactly what simping is, because, okay, Omowale and CourtneyMichelle, they're in their late 30s, I believe. Obsidian and Uncle Stu are in their 50s. And I'm right in between the two groups. So I'm 48. And there's always been a word there's been other words for simping, right? Whether we call them lames or punks, or even from the term of cupcaking, right? Stop cupcaking or stop caking. There's been in terms of there's a certain behavior that you have with your main lady, and then there's a certain behavior that you have with side chicks, right? You never treat the side chicks like your main lady, right? You take your main lady out to dinner, movies, whatever. The side chick don't get none of that. You give your lady birthday presents or whatever presents you give her, whatever. The side chick don't get that. So, but if a dude was doing that to a side chick, then it's, hey man, stop caking, stop cupcaking, stop caking these hoes, right? But the word simp has been around, and not just in the historical sense that Omowale is going to put down, right? Because that he's going to be correct about that's the historical sense. But since most dudes are not into pimping, most dudes are not into the pimping game. Most dudes are squares, right? From you're either square, pimp, or player, whatever, right? So this thing got real popular around the I'm a player type days, right? So I'll let him go ahead and continue. But this is extreme. It's nothing but a straw man argument and a form of gaslighting to basically state or say that guys are, he's giving his own reason of why people call other people simps. That's his projection. He's projecting what he thinks onto other people, because nowhere in this space will you find somebody that says, hey, you're a simp for loving your woman, etc., etc. You're treating her good, like what Courtney was saying. She's trying to love on his woman. Nobody says that. There's certain conditions, right? Boyce Watkins did the same thing. That's why I had him up on the simp card. Boyce Watkins did the exact same thing. He ran around here. There was a whole big context of Boyce Watkins being called a simp, right? First, nobody would have cared who Boyce Watkins married, right? What triggered people, or what had people coming at Boyce Watkins was that, okay, so he married a chick who was in her 50s, divorced, 3 kids, right? He also that they knew each other when they were young. For whatever reason, they didn't get together, and then they reconnected 20 some odd years later, 25, 30 years later, whatever it is, later. And then all of a sudden, now this is the love of my life, right? Nobody really cared about that, but that was part of the context. But what really set brothers off is when brothers were saying, hey, look, dudes, don't marry single mothers. It's a bad deal for men, especially young men with no children. It's a very bad deal. Boyce Watkins started calling men bitches for not wanting to do that, right? That's when he started getting called a simp, and people start going in on who he married. So there's context to it, right? Steve Harvey, another one, he gets called a simp. Not Lori Harvey, but Marjorie. She doesn't have the best history, from what I understand. That before she was with Steve, she was with a couple of drug dealers, and they were either brothers or cousins. They were related some kind of way, and she had a baby by both. The first one she had a baby with, he went to prison. She got with the other one. He became the kingpin. She got with him, had a baby with him, and this is all alleged, right? That's her history. Nobody cared about Steve Harvey. If that's who you want to marry, that's your problem, right? But what happened was, when Steve started, men are wrong to do that. Men are okay. No, Steve, you're a simp. Men supposed to take women out, and he's supposed to pay, and this, that, and the third, and you ain't a man if you don't pay, and you ain't. That's when we have a problem. So there's always context, and they know this. They're smarter than this. This thing is, and I'm gonna let, like I said, let me go. Let me keep going. This thing will be an hour. Me breaking this thing down, because Omowale is going to go into the history, but it's total gaslighting tactic, straw man, to make a weaker argument to argue against. That isn't the argument. That are there some outliers and some extremes, some people who anything you do good, nice for a woman you're a simp. Yeah, there's some of that, but the majority fall right into the middle, to where, hey, when you pedestalize a woman, when you put a woman on a pedestal, when you are cool with being a beta male orbiter just to be in her company, just to be in her presence, you just want to spend time with her, you just want to have some time with her, and you will agree to everything she say, even if it goes against your own best interest. Oh yeah, men are pig. You're right there, big up in the women. You're in the sister circle talking about, yes sir, those men are men in patriarchy and this, that, and the third. These are the simps that we're talking about. Like 21 Savage, when he was up there talking about, I'm Captain Save-A-Ho. That's simp. You don't have to go that far to get a woman. You don't have to do all that, and you definitely don't throw other brothers under the bus for the approval of women. Those are simps, and they know this. Okay, but he's going to get into the
Obsidian, please,
contest
you may have a different perspective.
Of what a simp is.
From reading books like, Iceberg Slim and like pimp culture, of the 70s, to be a simp just meant that you were a sympathetic pimp. It meant that you were like a rest haven for hoes. But now in today's...
And even in that context, a rest haven for hoes, right? Though, like I said again, most brothers are not into pimping, and that's good. That's a good thing. It's not a bad thing. It's a good thing that most brothers are not into pimping. Pimping hurts the community, right? But a rest haven for hoes, when when you treat a hoe like a housewife. That's the point. That's where that saying comes from, right? When you try to turn a hoe into a housewife, you're a rest haven for hoes. You'll go wife up the neighborhood hoe. You're a simp. Even within the confines of a marriage, right? All people who are married. Denzel Washington is married. Denzel Washington has never been called a simp for loving on his wife. This is why these guys out here. This is why all this stuff that they're saying on this panel is cap. Denzel Washington has never been called a simp. Will Smith has been called a simp because look at what his wife is doing to him. But Denzel, no. Let me think. I can go down the list. Samuel Jackson has never been called a simp, right? We can go down the list of who's been called a simp and who hasn't, and look at the reasons why they've been called a simp. Will Smith may love his wife. He does a lot of good things for his wife, but look at how his wife treats him. He's being treated like a doormat, so he's been called a simp. Reverse that with Denzel Washington. He takes care of his wife. Even Barack Obama wasn't really called a simp. Some people speculated on whether or not he was of the alphabet people. But him loving Michelle, nobody called him a simp for loving Michelle. These people, this stuff is cap. And again, like I said, when people, especially other black men, like I said, black men are so used to being gaslit and all these things, shamed, that they will turn around and do it to other black men, because what they're doing, and it's easy to see through what they're doing here, is that when you go into this heterophobic and all this stuff that Omowale was just saying, so then what puts in the mind of a brother that's listening, oh, well, dag, I better not call anybody a simp because I'm heterophobic. You shame him into, he's gonna say some other stuff. I love the company of women. The people calling people simps don't call people simps because they love the company of women. Like, come on, man, this stuff is
culture. To be a simp means to show respect to a woman.
No, see, look at that, it's gaslight.
You know what I mean?
No,
so you don't
come
go
on.
along with, like, to get along.
Okay, that's all, Kev. He said to be a simp, people are being called simps because they show respect to women. Whew, these guys, man. This is. I might need to re-edit that video, April Mason, and I wish I'd have saw this before I did the April Mason and the conscious simps, because I didn't list Omowale as one, and I don't think he is one. But I'm being facetious here. But I mean, come on. He knows people respect their moms, and that's not being a simp. Nobody calls somebody a simp for respecting their mom or their sister, their daughter. Even they have friends. Even if they have a main, like, again, if they have a wife and they respect their wife, nobody calls them a simp. Now, within the confines of a marriage, there's always been words, right? If someone walks, the old school word that the cats that used when I was coming up, when the adults that used when I was coming up, they called them henpeck. Men who basically allowed their wives to walk over them were called henpeck. There's always been words for this, and they know this. If it's not simp, it's always been a word for men who pedestalize women, put women on a pedestal, and will allow a woman to walk over them just to get to be in their company, and they know this.
And you're written as a simp in this space.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that.
Okay. I'm not going to get into the to Obsidian's part. Excuse me. I'm sorry about that. I'm not going to get into Obsidian's part here. I'm going to just jump over to Uncle Stu. Here comes
I think I'm just old because I ain't heard this simp word until I started learning about YouTube. And
but there's been other words.
It confused me, and it's funny. Chicago Rilla and I spoke about this too. And we spoke about, Iceberg Slim coming out of Chi-Town.
There's been other words for simp.
What I never heard the characteristics that people say a simp is. I thought that was just a black man being romantic, Yeah,
romantic to who though? There's context. You're not romantic to they call them thoughts now. We call them side pieces or hoes or whatever. There's always been terms for these types of people, right? chicken heads, hoes, thoughts. Now, there's always been words for certain behaviors. There's always been words. Each generation has their own word. Today, the word is simp. Like I said, we call them lames, punks. We call them, like I said, look, while you cupcaking. Now I can't even think of all the words that we used to say back then because simp is now in the lexicon, and you kind of update your vernacular, right? So it's not just being romantic, but being romantic to who? Walter over here is, talking about how much game. Any guy who says he has game, and then he's getting gamed, they're gonna be called a simp because this chick isn't about anything. She isn't wife material, so she shouldn't be treated like a wife. That's the whole point.
I didn't know it was wrong to take a woman to eat and then, have unrealistic expectations as to what happened.
Nobody said
I'm
that.
a man. If I'm going to take you
All
out
man
and
arguments.
my expectation is to go to bed with you, want to know about that before I walk out my door. Women don't have a problem receiving truth.
Yes, they do.
I mean, either I'm going to walk in my truth, but if I walk with an expectation lying in the beginning, and then my expectation falls, then whose fault is it? So
Hey, look, that's why we have the manosphere, because women, it's been hard for them to hear truth. That's why Kevin Samuels blew up to 1 million followers on Instagram and on YouTube. Women, because it's so out of the norm for somebody to say something to women, especially black women, that they don't want to hear. So that whole thing, I don't understand what Stu is talking about.
I think I really struggle with that word simp. I do understand alpha, beta, but even that is mingled based on who you listening to. I totally agree with Obsidian that today's time is different than when I came out of high school.
Okay, I don't know what
versus
he's getting into now.
High school, you can get out and get a good job at 18, 19 years old, making good money. You can't get out of high school today making the money that I was able to make. You can't even get into the military the same way
I mean, what does this have to do with anything about what a simp is? Because it almost sounds like where he's going into the Steve Harvey territory, to where Steve Harvey was like, "Hi, if you can't pay for a date, how you gonna take care of a family?" Most dudes ain't thinking about taking care of a family when they, in their 20s. Like, stop, come on, Steve. There's two different things, and that's what it sounds like Stu is saying. A dude working at Walmart can make enough money to take chicks on a date. You don't have to go into get job and military, take care of a family. That's what Uncle Stu sound like he's saying.
I was able to get into the military. So things has changed. The way you make money has changed. Therefore, the game has changed.
The game ain't changed all that much.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Except for the sexual revolution has made it easier for brothers to access sex, and women are able to access the top tier dudes because they can get flown out or flew out or whatever they say. You can get flew out. So they can get flew out and they don't have to deal with the dudes in their locality. A chick in country Nebraska, Omaha, if she looks good enough, somebody can fly her out to LA. She doesn't have to deal with the dudes right there in Nebraska, Omaha. So those are the only changes in the game. But the game, it don't change that much. You still have certain things you have to do.
One thing that Iceberg Slim has in common with a lot of the dudes today who call themselves red pill or black pill and have a certain disposition when it comes to women is that his situation started off with hurt or trauma.
Not right, about Iceberg Slim, but about all the people in the red pill space. They've all experienced trauma like Iceberg Slim.
If you read the book, he was molested by his older baby sister, babysitter. Right, she forced him to perform oral sex on her when he was a kid. He talks about that in the book, and it just makes me think of like a lot of the work that folks like Tommy Curry and Dr. Tiasan Johnson are doing to expose a lot of the trauma
which is
that
good.
black men deal with in the community.
Absolutely.
And they
that
don't even
needs to
have
be
the
focused.
language to express what they've been through.
I 100%
And that
agree with
impacts,
this.
it impacts the way that we relate to women. Like there is some unhealed trauma and dare I say, I don't want to call it hate, but resentment that a lot of black men feel.
He says
and
a
don't
lot.
necessarily have
And he's a
the
scholar.
language
I would
or
love
the
to know the exact
communication
number of that and
skills
how he came to
to
that
express how they
conclusion.
feel, and the way that it comes out is as this like
I think that is true that there is a certain population, but I couldn't say how many. I couldn't say. A lot is relative, right? There's 20 million black men. If there's 1 million, that's a lot. 20 million black men in the United States or whatever. 1 million is a lot. 100,000 is a lot. What's a lot?
like red pill rage or frustration, and when you get that, then like pretty much all women are written off as your enemy. And like for me, I love women too much. I mean, you can call me a simp, but I mean, I
See?
enjoy the company of a good woman.
Gaslighting. All right, I wanted to read this comment too. That's total gaslighting. Well, I enjoy the company of women too much. You can call me a simp because I enjoy. Nobody calls nobody a simp because they enjoy the company of women. Man, come on. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, this is primarily going to black men, and Omowale says he's here in the space to talk to black men, and this is what you get: the gaslighting straw man argument, and it's gaslighting or a form of it, because you're making arguments, much like a straw man argument. You're putting words in other people's mouths. So, like I said again, it's to shame them that. Well, dag, I don't want to call him a simp because then it makes me seem like I don't like women. I don't like the company of women. This brother likes the company of women, and you want to call him a simp for that, then come on, man. But anyway, listen to this. Who is this? Sir Hale speaks. Simping is using kindness, gifts, submissiveness, etc. A sort of manipulation to get what you want out of a woman. Simping means he is not assertive and honest with himself or her. That's even more lucid than what they're saying. And Courtney, I guess, is controlling the board. She totally put that up there, but didn't read it and didn't discuss it. Because I could have taken the conversation somewhere else, at least to discuss something that was more, I don't know, can't even think of the word. Something that was better framed than what the arguments that Uncle Stu and Omowale made.
So I can't put her on the opposing team. I enjoy women a bit too much. Right?
See, I can't put her on the opposing team. So people who call people who call men simps are putting women on the opposing team. Like, come on, man. You know what I mean? And I had to do this. Shout out to Steve Harvey. He got his simp card too, along with Boyce Watkins. These two guys, man, I swear. These dudes, man. those two characters, man. But anyway, there's other simps out there that can get women. Let me get back to that real quick before I finish up here. Derek Jackson, super simp. Derek Jackson, wish I had a picture of that dude up here. Derek Jackson, who can get women. He's shown that he can get women, right? Derek Jackson can get women. 6'5", whatever he is, he can get women, right? We gonna roll out the Boyce, right? We gonna roll out the Boyce being up on the screen, being the simp here. Boyce got a fanny pack on it. That's straight simp stuff. But anyway, Derek Jackson, he can get women, but we call him a simp, right? It's not because he likes the company of women. He lies to women and he trashes black men to do it. That's a simp. He's pedestalizing women and then gets caught up there being a hypocrite. That's a simp because he was doing all this lying and he obviously didn't have to. There's many women that fawned over the way he looked at. What is he, 6'5" or whatever? He's a big dude. He's a little buff or whatever. He didn't have to lie to women to get women. You should be honest. These are the people who are being called simps, not just, oh, you love him. Nobody's gonna call Omowale a simp because he has a wife and he loves his wife and he loves to be around company of women. Now, when he does things like, because I saw it in a comment on a video that he did before, if the conversation is about what black women are doing wrong, and then you flip the conversation into what black men are doing wrong, then somebody's gonna call you a simp. Because keep the focus, answer the question to where it was, as opposed to how does it then flip to black men, something about black men, if the question is being asked about black women. It makes no sense. So that kind of thing is seen as pedestalizing a woman or women, and that somebody may call you a simp. But like I said, are there extremes? There's extremes in everything. Are there some people that's going to call you a simp for having a wife? Sure, right? There's some people that's going to do that. And again, it isn't just the cats who can't get women that call people simps, right? I use the word because it's in the vernacular now. It's the most common word to describe a guy who pedestalizes women, right? There's another someone made an acronym for simp, right? Simp, S-I-M-P. Someone idolizing mediocre P, right? And that's a good way to put it. And people can say, "Oh, you hate women." No, I don't hate women. I'm married for 18 years, love my wife, and if someone calls me a simp for that, then so be it. But they wouldn't. The majority of people wouldn't call you a simp for that. You chose to get married. There's going to be some extremes, but if my wife was out here cheating on me and going online and posting it, and I'm crying over in the corner and all it, yeah, I would expect for somebody to call me a simp over that kind of foolishness. She doing all kinds of stuff and making me look crazy out here in these streets, and I'm sitting back defending her, or she wants to go to the slut walk, and I'm right up in there with her with the slut walk with the t-shirt on. Call me a simp. I deserve to be called a simp all day. But somebody who builds a black family and is taking care of their responsibilities in terms of their wife and their kids or whatever, that's not a simp. But here again, like I said, with Boyce, he did the same thing. He made all these straw man arguments. Well, I'm being called a simp for loving a black woman, for marrying a black woman. No, that's not what you've been called a simp. You know what you did. And I don't, we got to be honest out here, man. But anyway, those are my thoughts. It's way too long anyway. This dang near turned into a rant because I don't like people being disingenuous, and they were all being disingenuous on that panel. Excuse me, Obsidian, he didn't really say anything. He just talked about Iceberg Slim. That's why I cut his part out. He didn't really go into what a simp was. But, Courtney, we don't really care what you're tired of. When men are talking, you said when men are talking, I heard you say on the Lapeef show, when men are talking, you get quiet. This is the time to be quiet. I mean, you can be in the space or whatever, but we don't really care. We don't want to hear what women are tired of. Men are trying to help each other level up, which you, like I said, you talked about men being held accountable. So anyway, like I said, I'm about to keep going. Like I said, it's about to turn into a rant. But those are my final thoughts. Peace, Rebel family.